article yesterday entitled "The Tales from the Broken Relationship of the African Diaspora." It was written by John W. Fountain in the Chicago Crusader. And I came across this article because I was researching something. I don't really remember what I was researching, and this popped up, and so I read the article. And definitely interesting article, and I'm going to go through the article today because what he's talking about as far as the relationship between African Americans and Africans is definitely something that we see all over social media. The diaspora war is real. It is still going on. Don't know when it's going to end, if it's ever going to end. But a lot of what he said in this article definitely does shed some light into why the war is continuing and what can we do to end it. Where there can be a lot more unification, a lot more understanding, and so that there can be a building of a relationship, so there will no longer be a diaspora war. So let's go ahead and get on to this article. There's a lot to break a piece here and to really talk about, and so I'm going to try to talk about as much as I can without making this video super long. But the article is a very long article, and I will link below so that you can go and read the article yourself, because it is definitely an interesting read. I'm not going to talk about everything in the article because then this video will be super long, but I am going to touch on the most important things that I feel like are the reason why we have the diaspora wars, and you know, what can be done that these can definitely no longer be issues. All right, so let's get on into it. So the first thing that he says is what I've heard a lot of African Americans say: I love America and America hates me. African Americans are fully aware of the relationship that they have with the United States of America. It has not been a good relationship. America has made promises to the Black community that they have not fulfilled, and African Americans are continuing to see how they're getting slighted in the United States of America, and America is not doing anything to remedy the problem, to offer any type of solutions to the Black community. So there is definitely a love-hate relationship between African Americans and the United States of America. It doesn't matter how bad it is, there are going to be some African Americans who are going to continue to stay there. They're going to continue to speak positively on America, and there's really nothing anybody can say about it, even though they know reality of how the United States really feels about the Black community. Well, let's keep going. So the next part he talks about is not being considered a brother, or not feeling like he is a brother in Ghana. I'll return with the piercing truth as a Black man that even if I could prove my DNA ancestral lineage to Ghana or change the status of my citizenship from American to Ghanaian, I would never be truly accepted here as a brother. African Americans have this dream. They have their own reality of what going back to Ghana is going to look like. They think it's going to look like the Roots movie by Alex Haley, where he went back to his family home, or family, you know, where his lineage was, and they welcomed him with open arms. The one thing to say about Roots that is different from a lot of African Americans is that his family kept that lineage alive. His father did what was necessary to keep it alive, to keep the stories going, so that they would not forget where they came from. Unfortunately, that didn't happen with majority African Americans. The stories did not continue, so you don't really know precisely where you came from. Alex Haley was really able to pinpoint kind of where he came from, and we all know that there's a you know, conversation of whether or not it was a true story or not. But in the movie, because it was passed down from generation to generation to generation, he was able to then find kind of where his family descended from, which made it easier for him to go back there and then feel welcomed, because he was able to know, this is the story that my father told me, and my father's father, and so forth and so forth. But there's a connection missing there. We are missing the connection of African Americans as far as the African history piece, and then they're missing the African American history piece, so there's not really a connection there. So it's going to be very difficult then for there to be a brotherly relationship or a sisterly relationship that I feel like African Americans are expecting when they go to these African countries. In the Black community, we always address ourselves, we address each other as brother and sister. That doesn't necessarily mean we have that type of relationship, because we all know that there are a lot of situations where in the Black community, the brotherly and sisterly love pretty much goes out the door in certain situations. But that doesn't take away the fact that we do have some type of commonality there. And so that's what African Americans need to really expect when they go to Ghana. There's a commonality there. You have a commonality in the lineage there. And so you have to end up making that connection in order for you to build that relationship. That's not just something that's just going to happen when you get off of the plane. And that's just an unrealistic expectations that African Americans are expecting when they go to these African countries, as if the Ghanaians or wherever African country that they are going to, that the people are just going to be waiting at the airport and they're going to be saying, hey brother, hey sister. That is not something that's going to happen. Now, what will happen, because it has happened to me, when I have got off the plane, I have had people at the airport welcome me. And they will say, welcome home, you are home. I have had that happen to me at the airport. So, you know, I think it just happens to be going there at the right time, the right people there at that particular time. I'm not for certain, but I do know that it comes with time. It's not something that's just going to happen when you get off the plane. He went ahead and talked about how he definitely feels some sort of way knowing that his descendants were so-called sold by the Africans. And I wish that people would stop making that argument. It really is an argument that needs to be dead. If you know anything about history, if you read anything about slavery, you know that slavery was going on in every civilization. And it was something that was done when the civilizations were trying to expand their empires. And so in order to expand their empires, they had to conquer these various areas in order for them to conquer it and make it theirs. And so with it came the people. And so a lot of times they would enslave the people. And a lot of times they would sell these people to other civilizations for financial reasons, for them to get guns or other types of resources that they would need, because as we all know, money was not really something that was there. The monetary way of getting things done was by resources, and one of the resources that people used, unfortunately, was enslaved people. And so for people to just harp on the African civilization as if they were the only ones that were engaging in any type of slave trade is, again, to me, just trying to make the African continent, trying to paint the African continent as this negative place. And it really, really is not. They weren't doing anything differently than any other civilization. Now, when it comes to selling their own people, I wish people would also stop saying selling their own people. They look at the African continent, the African civilizations, like they do the African continent, as if all the empires were the same, and they were not. They were different empires with different cultures, with different way of life. And so even within those empires, if I'm trying to conquer your empire, I'm going to take your people. They're not my people. If I'm from the Mali Empire and I go and conquer the Songhai Empire, then of course I'm not going to be thinking then that you are my people. I'm going to be thinking that you're my enemy, and I'm going to conquer you, and I'm going to enslave your people, and I'm going to do with your people what I will. They're not my people. And so when they start saying, oh, they enslaved their own, they did not enslave their own. They were enslaving their enemies. So I really wish that argument would stop, because I think it's a little sad that African Americans are able to overlook the European colonizers and everything that they the main reason why the transatlantic slave trade was going on, but then they're not able to overlook the small the smallness of the African empires as far as their hand in the transatlantic slave trade. Like, it really was small. Okay, it was not at the magnitude that the Europeans were doing. So if the Europeans had never gone to these African empires to get these Africans, there would not have been a transatlantic slave trade. The Africans were not going up to these Europeans saying, hey, we have people here, do you want them? So I mean, yeah, I mean, that the argument is getting a little old, and that's not a reason for you to go back to the African continent and all of a sudden you feel in some sort of way when you're going back to the very continent that we all know. Well, yeah, okay, I'm just saying. Now the last two things I'm going to talk about, because I didn't want this video to go too long, was him talking about that the Ghanaians take advantage of African Americans and just use them for resources, use them for tourism, and they overcharge them for a lot of things. And so of course that is definitely an issue. That's going to happen anywhere you go. If you're a foreigner and you're going anywhere, they're going to treat you like a foreigner, and you're going to be paying more than a native would. We have been living overseas now for a very long time, and the house that we're renting right now, we're definitely paying more than somebody who actually is from here. In Ghana, however, I think it's important for you to be with a Ghanaian if possible whenever you're doing anything, so that you can see the ways. Ghana operates in finagling. No price is ever set in stone, so you're able to kind of finagle your way into the price that you want to pay. But if you don't know that, and they think that, and they feel like they can take advantage of you, they will. And it is not because you're African American. They will take advantage of their own. My husband right now, since we've been trying to fix our home and trying to get it finished, he has made sure he's kept his eyes open, his ears open, to make sure that he doesn't get scammed, because there are some scammers in Ghana. There's scammers everywhere, and again, you have to be vigilant. You have to have people around you that know the ways, teach you the ways, so that you can know when you're getting scammed. And if they feel like that they can scam you out of your money, they will. And you need to understand that. But that's just not a Ghanaian issue. That's an issue in general around the world. There's always people out there that's going to try to take advantage of somebody if they can. Now, what I think is funny and hilarious is that they always say that the Ghanaians are trying to take advantage of foreigners. Now, foreigners that don't look like me will pay whatever money they want to pay. They tell them there's 2,000 cities. Foreigners that don't look like me, they'll pay the 2,000 cities, and they keep it moving. But foreigners that look like me feel like, oh, we're not going to pay that. We're too good to pay that. Because we look like you, we feel like that you should give us the same rate that you give the natives. No, it doesn't work like that unless you know how the natives are finagling and what they're doing to make sure that they don't have to pay those types of prices. You need to have a Ghanaian with you, point blank period. If you want to understand how everything works, have somebody with you, and then you're not going to get scammed. They're not going to try to overcharge you because you're going to have somebody there that's going to help you. I said this similarly when I was talking about demolishing of the homes. The African Americans, is important that you get in contact with a Ghanaian to help you move along the way, because I've heard this a lot as far as, you know, African Americans upset that the Ghanaians are overcharging them, and you know, they're having to pay differently than the natives. And I'm just like, well, what do you expect? You're coming over here simply because you want to be able to pay a lower rate for homes. You want to pay a lower rate for businesses. You're coming over to Ghana because you know that you're not going to be able to get that same type of lifestyle in the United States of America. So since that's the case, and the Ghanaians know that, they know you're coming to their country because you can afford to build that big home. You can afford to start that business. So since they know that, they're saying to themselves, then you had the money then to do that. And 2,000 cities, they feel like you should be able to afford that. Now, if you can't afford it, then you should not be walking around there like you can. You need to have somebody there to help you, to make sure it is known that, yes, I am building a home, yes, I am building a business, but I still want to stay within this budget here. I don't have 2,000 cities to give you. I've got 500 cities to give you, and either you're going to take that or you're not going to get any business. Now, which one do you want? You have to learn how to finagle. That is the thing in Ghana. If you don't know how to do it, well, then you're going to get scammed. That's just the way it goes there in Ghana. And the last thing he talked about, and I've heard this many times, is being called a brony. African Americans have this notion as if the Ghanaians are just calling them a bronies. They're not. A brony is a word that means foreigner, and you are a foreigner to the Ghanaians. To a lot of Ghanaians, you are a foreigner. That used to kind of irritate me too, till my husband explained it to me in a way that I could understand, and I was just like, okay. I don't hear it so much now. I really don't. When I go back home, I don't remember the last time that I heard a brony. And a lot of times when I've heard it, it's been from kids. It hasn't been from adults. It's been from kids being kids, and so they can just be ignored. Even when I first came in 2003, I was called a brony, and they were kids that were calling me that. Not really adults. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying a lot of times it's been kids that's been saying it, or those who just don't know better. And it's just like, and who cares? Who cares? That goes into you trying to be Ghanaian. That goes into you trying to be looked at as brothers and sisters, and that comes with time. That's something gradual that has to happen. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to happen in 8 months. It might take a year. It might take 2 years for it to get to the point where you feel like, yes, I am feeling the brotherly love. I am feeling the sisterly love. But you can only feel that when you just allow yourself to be in Ghana and stop going over there with these unrealistic expectations about what you feel like it's going to be. And then when it's not, you're walking away disappointed. So again, I will link the article below. I think it's an interesting article. At the end, he did say that he missed Ghana. He did enjoy his time there. He did have some positive things to say about it. But of course, the negative things of how he felt kind of outweighed the positives. And so that's why he felt like he needed to go back to the United States of America, because he just didn't feel like he was getting what he wanted to get from Ghana. And there are some African Americans who might not ever feel that way, and at least they need to be honest about it and then go on back. But I feel like if you give it some time and you really just let yourself live and let yourself be, and stop coming up with these unrealistic expectations of what you think is going to be or how you think that people should react to you, and realize that the connection between the African Americans and the Africans is going to take some time. It's not going to be something that's going to happen overnight. We have to start building that bridge by educating each other, by showing appreciation for each other, and we can do that. We can do that, but it definitely is going to take some time. All right, you all. I am Michele Mazelleغ. Thank you all for watching. Make sure that you like and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.